In most industries, success becomes visible. A larger office, a faster car, a louder symbol. But in certain rooms, status moves differently. It arrives quietly, sometimes in the form of a handbag, not the newest design, not the most advertised, not even the most practical. A Hermès Birkin. You may notice it at a private dinner in Paris, in a discreet corner of a hotel lobby in Tokyo, on the arm of someone stepping out of a chauffeured car in New York. Different cities, different lives, yet the same object appears again and again. Not because it is easy to obtain, but because it is difficult. The Birkin was never positioned as a mass luxury product. It evolved into something far more complex, a signal understood without explanation. Ownership suggests patience. Access suggests recognition. And over time, the bag stopped functioning as an accessory. It became a quiet form of social language. Luxury often begins with attraction, but at Hermès, it begins with time. In cities across the world, a subtle pattern unfolds each morning. Clients arrive early, not because the store lacks inventory, but because access itself has become part of the experience. In Paris, queues form before the doors open. In Tokyo, certain bags sit behind glass like museum pieces, admired more often than purchased. You do not simply decide to buy a Birkin, you move toward it. This slow progression reshapes the psychology of ownership. Anticipation builds emotional weight long before the product is even seen. The waiting, the uncertainty, the quiet persistence, all of it transforms a handbag into something larger than fashion. By the time an offer finally arrives, the object already carries meaning, not just because of what it is, but because of everything it required. At first glance, the price of a Birkin seems straightforward. A standard model may begin somewhere around the cost of a small car. Yet that figure rarely defines its true value, because most Birkins never move through the world at retail pricing. They enter a secondary market shaped by rarity, speculation, and global demand. There, numbers shift dramatically. Auction houses display them under glass lights. Private collectors trade them in quiet transactions. Certain materials like rare leathers, exotic skins, limited colors, transform the bag into something closer to an asset than an accessory. Over time, headlines began to follow. Record-breaking sales, six-figure valuations, waiting lists growing longer each year. What makes this unusual is not just the price. It is the perception. Scarcity changes how an object is understood. The harder it becomes to obtain, the more symbolic it feels. And in modern luxury, symbolism often carries more weight than cost itself. Luxury becomes influential when it crosses boundaries. Fashion alone cannot create that reach. It requires visibility in worlds that rarely intersect: finance, entertainment, royalty, art. Over time, the Birkin began appearing in all of them. It was seen in airport terminals beside global executives, at fashion shows, carried by designers who shaped entire eras, in private gatherings, photographed on the arms of figures whose influence extended far beyond style. Celebrities adopted it, but so did individuals who rarely appeared in public at all. This range gave the bag unusual cultural flexibility. It did not belong to a single aesthetic or generation. It moved between them effortlessly, adapting without changing. For some, it represented heritage. For others, personal achievement. For many, it became a subtle signal of belonging to an international elite. When an object functions across so many worlds, it stops feeling like trend-driven fashion. It begins to resemble a shared language of status. Most luxury purchases follow a simple path. You choose, you pay, you leave. Hermès operates differently. Inside its boutiques, transactions unfold slowly, almost ceremonially. Conversations replace quick decisions. Familiarity grows over repeated visits. Clients build histories, not through urgency, but through consistency. Over time, the relationship itself becomes part of the experience. The Birkin is rarely displayed prominently. It is not marketed through digital storefronts or seasonal campaigns. Instead, access is extended through discretion. Offers arrive quietly, often when least expected. The uncertainty surrounding this process creates emotional investment long before ownership begins. This model reshapes how luxury is perceived. Buying becomes secondary. Being recognized becomes central. The moment a client is invited to purchase carries a subtle validation that money alone cannot replicate. In this way, Hermès transforms commerce into connection, and connection into prestige. For most people, clothing exists in the present. It is worn, admired, and eventually replaced. Yet certain objects resist that cycle. Collectors started treating Birkin less like an accessory and more like a store of value. Specialized resellers emerged. Auction houses dedicated entire catalogs to rare Hermès pieces. Private dealers built discrete networks around sourcing and authentication. Some owners never intended to carry their bags at all. They acquired them, preserved them, and watched their worth evolve. This shift altered the perception of luxury fashion. The Birkin was no longer just something to wear. It became something to hold, to manage, to protect. In certain years, its resale performance outpaced traditional investments, drawing attention from individuals who previously viewed fashion as purely aesthetic. In that moment, a handbag crossed into financial territory, and luxury quietly entered the language of assets. Every cultural symbol begins somewhere ordinary. For the Birkin, it began on a flight. In the mid-1980s, actress and singer Jane Birkin found herself seated beside Jean-Louis Dumas, then the head of Hermès. During the journey, she mentioned a simple frustration. She could never find a bag that balanced practicality with elegance. Something spacious, functional, yet refined enough for daily life. Dumas listened. By the time the plane landed, he had sketched a rough concept, not a marketing strategy, just a response to a real human need. What followed was more deliberate. Hermès introduced the design slowly. Production remained controlled. Craftsmanship stayed rooted in tradition, with artisans dedicating hours and sometimes days to a single piece. The story humanized the object, an idea born from conversation. Fashion usually moves in cycles. Seasons arrive, trends surge, collections fade. What feels essential one year can seem outdated the next. Hermès chose a different rhythm. It never chased rapid change or seasonal urgency. Instead, it cultivated continuity. A Birkin from decades ago can still appear entirely relevant today. Not because it was reinvented, but because it was never designed to be temporary. Materials age gracefully. Craftsmanship resists obsolescence. The design remains consistent enough to feel familiar, yet refined enough to feel timeless. This stability creates a rare kind of trust. Clients begin to see the object not as fashion, but as permanence, something that can move between generations without losing meaning. In a world defined by acceleration, Hermès offers stillness, and that stillness becomes part of its allure. Modern life has made most things immediate. Information arrives instantly. Products ship overnight. Experiences are designed for speed. Against this backdrop, Hermès maintains a philosophy built on restraint. It limits visibility. It controls distribution. It allows uncertainty to remain part of the process. This approach reshapes the psychology of ownership. Waiting becomes meaningful. Access feels earned. It suggests patience, recognition, and position within a quiet hierarchy of taste. The Birkin, in this sense, sells selection rather than availability. Being offered one can feel like validation, not loudly celebrated but internally understood. In a world defined by abundance, Hermès demonstrates something increasingly rare: the luxury of control. If you're drawn to the world of quiet luxury, subscribe and stay with us as we explore the subtle symbols of timeless refinement.